The gavel snaps like thunder, its boom ringing out across the hushed courtroom. No one takes a breath for an instant. It is not merely wood against wood. It is years of suppressed agony, domination, and silence exploding into the air. This case before the court is not such a fire, such an accident, such a fraud. This one is blacker, more silent, more difficult to establish, and more devastating than the others. Tonight, the Brown family is not bickering over property or dollars. Tonight, they're battling scars nobody can see. Whispers circulate in the gallery. Journalists hunch forward, pencils sharpened. Fans of the once celebrity family fidget in seats, some wagging their heads in disbelief, others looking on slowly, as if they'd known all along. And in the middle of it all is Kody Brown, the former patriarch, who once flaunted his polygamous family over TV screens. Once a man who boasted to be a leader, yet today, a man accused of the sharpest betrayal a husband and father can be accused of emotional abuse. The accusation itself doesn't carry the same flames and sparks of negligence or fraud. This time, there are no sheds burned to the ground, no forged names. What the prosecution has to offer is more tenuous to grasp, but more pointed when it slices. Words, habits, actions. Christine and Janelle stand on one side of the room, shoulders set, their faces firm. Meri hangs back a little farther, unsure but there, and Robyn sits next to Kody, her face white, a crumpled tissue wrapped in her shaking hand. The judge's tone is measured, but it cuts the air with gravitas. The state versus Kody Brown. The issue complaints of extended psychological and emotional abuse within the domestic structure. A shiver runs through the gallery. This is not a battle for property. This is not about who owns Coyote Pass or who stole money from family funds. This is about pain carried in the mind and heart, about wounds that don't heal with ointment or stitches. This is about whether the words Kody said in kitchens, bedrooms, and family meetings caused wounds as real as any flame. Christine's eyes flutter as she listens, a mixture of fear and bravery rolling behind them. She had endured for years, bearing the burden of his derisions, the silence that fell after her entreaties, the chronic sense of being less than. Janelle is beside her, serene but adamant, the unspoken power of one who has borne storms too long. Together they are not just ex-wives, they are witnesses, plaintiffs, voices for children who were too young to defend themselves when the words were spoken. On the other side of the aisle, Kody fidgets in his seat, his jaw clenches, his lips curled into a firm line. His hair is wild about his shoulders, but it is not his look that commands the room. It's his eyes, unyielding, fiery, unapologetic. To him this trial is only betrayal. To him the women who called him husband are now adversaries, taking intimate family issues and making them public humiliation. Robyn moves closer, breathing something into his ear, her gaze flicking urgently at the jury. Her face is tense with concern, tissue wet from crying. She clings to him as if being there is evidence that he still matters, still is loved, still is defended. The prosecutor, Reed Whitmore, moves forward. His tone is measured, controlled. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case will not present you with pictures of fire or altered records. This case will present you with text messages, diary entries, therapy records, and the testimony of women and children who lived under a man who professed love but exercised control. We will demonstrate to you that emotional abuse leaves scars as profound as any physical attack, that neglect is not merely of security but of the heart. And we will invite you to determine whether or not those scars are worth justice. The jury sits, some nodding slightly, others still inscrutable. Darden, the attorney for Kody, stands next. His voice is like silk, smooth and persuasive. The prosecution will present you with tales, emotional tales, painful tales, but tales nonetheless. We do not prosecute for heartbreak. We do not prosecute stubbornness. Mr. Brown was perhaps not the ideal husband or father. None of us are. But to be imperfect is not to be abusive. What you shall hear is bitterness distorted into accusation. What you shall witness is an effort to punish a man for being imperfect, for being human. He stops, glancing at the jury with studied earnestness. Love may hurt, but love is not criminal. The gallery shifts, some shake their heads in disapproval. Others edge forward, ravenous for the drama to continue. Christine blinks her eyes shut, as if grounding herself for what is to follow. She knows the world has watched her smile on TV, watched her laugh, watched her pretend to be a good wife. They never witnessed the nights she wept alone, the words that sliced like knives, the dismissals that made her invisible. She knows her truth will be a shock. She knows to say it out loud will be painful. But she also knows that silence has already cost her too much. Janelle sits upright, her hands clasped correctly in her lap. She is not one to erupt into anger or spew bitter words, but she has a ledger of memories, a very long list of nights and days when she felt her voice was taken away. Her serenity will make her testimony more difficult to ignore. Meri sits in the back, conflicted. Her own history is complex, covered in betrayal of her own making, but also in guilt. She has experienced what it is to be diminished. She has experienced what it is to be unseen. Yet she knows her voice may be enough to tilt the balance, and she hasn't yet determined if she will use it. And then there is Robyn, always faithful, always crying, holding on to the hope that her husband is not the monster the others made him out to be. To her he is imperfect but loyal, a man grasping for a way to keep together a family coming apart at the seams. To her his words were not weapons, they were shields against the ruin he most feared. The courtroom is no longer walls and wood anymore. It is a war of memory. Both sides bring not only proof but lived lives, rough and unvarnished. And the jury, 12 strangers summoned from the world beyond, will have to decide whose memories bear the weight of truth. The judge surveys the room, her expression inscrutable. We will start with opening testimony tomorrow morning. Court is adjourned. The gavel falls again. The sound is muted this time, but no less absolute. The gallery breathes, reporters rush, and the family members disperse in various directions. But one thing is sure, this trial will not be concluded with tidy solutions. It will conclude with shattered truths unveiled, and a verdict that will either legitimize years of anguish or reject them as tales. And somewhere deep down, everyone knows the real question isn't just whether Kody is guilty. The real question is whether emotional wounds can ever truly be seen, measured, and judged. The first morning of testimony dawns with a sky heavy and gray, as if even the desert will not shine upon what is to come. Cameras flash like lightning outside the courthouse. Reporters throng the steps, their voices a cacophonous chorus. Christine, will justice be served? Kody, are you guilty of these charges? Robyn, do you support your husband? The responses don't count yet. The only voices that will count will resonate within courtroom 3B, where wood and marble and quiet weigh more than microphones. Inside, the jury settles in individually. Some cannot meet Kody's eyes. Others eye him intensely, maybe attempting to read the face of a man who stands accused of scarring hearts, not flesh. Christine appears a few moments later, head held high, though hands tremble slightly as she clutches the railing. Janelle stands at her side, as calm as stone, unreadable face though steady presence. Meri stands back in the rear, tense posture between loyalty and honesty. And then Robyn, eyes already bloodshot, a wad of tissue crumpled in her hand, sits down in the front row next to Kody, as if her proximity is going to protect him. Each family goes into a courtroom with two faces, the one they've presented to the world, and the face the world is soon going to learn. Judge Harrison, with her silver hair and piercing eyes, brings the room to order. Her tone is calm, untheatrical. We are here to take testimony over charges of prolonged psychological and emotional abuse. These are delicate issues. The jury is reminded to balance not just the words heard but the patterns they create. The prosecutor, Reed Whitmore, stands first. Short, measured, he moves with the air of a man who knows how to slash with words without having to raise his voice. He speaks to the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, what you will hear today are not sensational in nature. No bombings, no robbery, no open wounds. But no wounds on flesh mean no wounds on the soul. What we will reveal to you is a pattern. Years of belittling, dismissing, controlling. Words uttered not once, not twice, but every day, until they became cages. We will reveal journals, messages, and testimony that uncover how a man's pride can suffocate the people around him. And we will ask you to see that abuse is not always shouted. It is sometimes whispered, until silence itself becomes the greatest sound. He pauses, allowing the words to take effect. The jury shifts, eyes darting Christine's way, then back to Whitmore. This is the strength of opening testimony. It doesn't establish guilt. It sows doubt, and doubt spreads quicker than fire. Darden, Kody's defense lawyer, stands smoothly. His voice is silk next to Whitmore's steel. What you are about to hear, he says, walking slowly, are stories of heartbreak. Tales of marriages that failed, of love that shattered, of relationships that broke. My client is not standing trial for being perfect, because that is not possible. He is standing trial because bitterness has been manipulated into accusation. Emotional abuse is a loose definition, one that can be molded to any complaint, any disappointment. Were there words used? Yes. Were there lost tempers? Certainly. But love is not immaculate. It is raw, painful, messy, and it mustn't be criminalized. He glares at the jury, his voice dropping. We do not try failed marriages. We do not punish angry words. And when this is done, I hope you will recognize that what occurred here was not abuse. It was humanity. Kody slumps back in his chair, a slight nod and his lips forming a tight smile. Robyn holds his hand more firmly, as if each word from Darden keeps them afloat. Christine does not blink. Her gaze is steadfast on the floor, as if conserving strength for when she finally opens her mouth. The first witness is Christine herself. The bailiff administers the oath, and she stands before him with quiet strength that fills the room. She sets a journal on the wooden railing in front of her, its leather cover worn, pages frayed from use. Whitmore approaches carefully. Miss Brown, might I ask the court why you kept this journal? Christine takes a slow breath. Because I had somewhere to put the things he said. If I didn't write them down, they'd consume me. The jury leans in. Would you read one entry for us? She scans through, her fingers shaking just a little, then starts March 12th. Tonight, he said, I was holding back the family, that my fears made me weep, that if I loved him, I'd complain less, and support more. I slept alone. I cried softly, so the kids wouldn't know. He used the word love, but it didn't feel like love. It felt like failure. And I was the failure. Her voice cracks, but she continues reading. April 7th, he told the other wives that he is respected more, because he is not questioned. He told me I was the reason the family seemed torn apart. I felt like dust in the wind, without a voice. But still, I smiled over dinner. I smiled so the children would not notice. Gasp reverberates through the gallery. Diaries do not lie. They just contain words we wish we could forget. Whitmore nods. Miss Brown, why did you keep writing these entries? Christine gently closes the book. Because I knew someday, someone would have to know about them. And if I didn't make it, at least the truth would. Whitmore takes a step back. No further questions. Darden stands, always so smooth. Christine, do you consider these entries your viewpoint? Yes? So they're not objective facts. They're your emotion. Christine's lips quiver. A near smile. When you tell somebody they're worthless, Mr. Darden, it doesn't sound like opinion. The jury shifts once more. Darden continues. But you do concede. Marriages have arguments. Hurtful words said in the heat of anger. You've never told him anything hurtful? Christine's eyes sparkle, but she holds her ground. I've said things out of anger. But I never made my love depend on anything. I never told him he was nothing if he didn't do what I wanted. The courtroom becomes silent. Retention booster. When love is conditional, it isn't love anymore. It is control. Next, Janelle is called. She doesn't have a journal to bring, but she has something more substantial. Printouts of text messages. She hands them over to the bailiff, who turns them over to the judge, then the jury. Whitmore leads her. Miss Brown, would you read the message written on August 15th? Janelle puts on her glasses and reads out loud. You're too soft on the children. They don't respect me because you allow them to question me. If you want this family to make it, you need to stop undermining me. If you can't, then perhaps you're not the partner I believed you were. The jury whispers amongst themselves. Janelle glances up. This wasn't a one-time message. It was relentless. Love was always conditional. Respect wasn't something he had to work for. It was something he insisted on. Whitmore nods. How did this impact your children? Janelle's voice shudders, then steadies. They shut up. They ceased to ask questions. They became fearful that each word would be an error. Do you have any idea what it's like to stand by and let your child silence themselves so their father won't be displeased? Her voice cracks, once before she recovers. Silence in children is not peace, it's fear masquerading. By the time court recesses, the atmosphere is charged with emotion. The jurors don't meet one another's gaze, as if fearful of acknowledging what they're already considering. The gallery hums with a cacophony of whispers, reporters writing passionately. Christine exits the stand drained, but unshattered. Janelle walks alongside her, a beam of composure in the midst of the tempest. Across the defense table, Kody simmers quietly, his lips twisted in disdain. He speaks in a voice low enough to be heard only by Darden, but his glare at Christine speaks volume. Robyn clutches his hand, whispering, "They don't understand. They weren't there. They don't know." But the jury has heard enough to realize this is no longer a trial about technicalities. It's about truth. And tomorrow, when the children's voices are heard, truth will carry a weight no father can escape. The second day breaks clearer than the previous day, but no one arriving at the courthouse notices. On the steps outside, cameras flash once more, but there is no necessity for loud shouting. Journalists already know who today's major witness will be: Christine. Within courtroom 3B is abuzz, with an agitated energy. Jurors sip water, fiddle with papers, glance over at the woman they've only just come to know. Christine Brown perches at the plaintiff's table, back straight but hands fidgeting in her lap. She's done this before, but this day is different. This day she isn't merely introducing evidence. This day she is bearing her soul. The judge enters. Court is now in session. The gavel cracks, steady and sharp. Whitmore, the prosecutor, stands. "Your Honor, the state would like to call back Christine Brown to the witness stand." Christine walks across the room slowly, each step heavy, deliberate. She takes the oath again and sits, holding her journal again. The courtroom is silent but alive, every breath waiting. Courtrooms are founded upon silence, but sometimes silence speaks louder than testimony. Whitmore speaks quietly. "Miss Brown, yesterday you read to us from your journal. Today I'd like to explore more deeply. Why did you need to write down your life so meticulously?" Christine touches the journal, running fingers over familiar pages. "Because words disappear, but pain doesn't. And I knew that if I didn't write them down, I might begin to believe him rather than me." The jury leans in. "Would you read another entry?" She turns to a page marked. Her voice shakes but does not crack. November 23rd. Tonight he said, "I was selfish for wanting time alone." He said, "If I truly loved him, I would stop thinking of myself and think only of him." When I tried to explain, he told me I was dramatic. He said my feelings were weakness, and weakness had no place in our family. Her throat tightens, she exhales, then continues. January 5th. He spoke to me loudly at dinner. He said in front of the children that I was disappointing him, disappointing them, disappointing God. I felt smaller than I ever have in my life. When I went to bed, I wrote this because I don't recognize who I am anymore when he talks to me this way. The courtroom is silent. A juror blinks away tears. Another fidgets uncomfortably, jotting down notes. Whitmore's voice mollifies further. "How did these words affect you over time?" Christine closes the book. "They hollowed me out. At first I thought if I just tried harder, he would love me again. But every time I tried, the words cut deeper. I stopped hearing myself. I started to believe that I was nothing." Kody fidgets in his seat, jaw clenching, eyes narrow, lips pursed in tangible frustration. Robyn brushes at his arm hastily, whispering something only he hears. Neglect does not have to be a shout. It's the constant wear away of someone's value until they disappear within themselves. Whitmore leans in more firmly. "Miss Brown, did these words ever impact your children?" Christine nods, on the verge of tears. "Yes. They witnessed me being silenced. They witnessed me being undermined. And children learn from observation. My daughters began to apologize for everything, even when they hadn't done anything wrong. My son quit asking questions because he thought questioning was disrespectful." She cracks the voice, and this time can't restrain it. A raw, unedited sob bursts out. She hides her face in hands. For a second, the courtroom gasps with her. Pain so authentic, nobody feels like looking away. The judge gives her a second. Even Whitmore takes a step back, his expression grave. Christine composes herself, wiping at her eyes, and raises her chin. "I didn't lose myself, either," she breathes. "I watched my children lose pieces of themselves, too." Gasps spread through the gallery. Darden rises for cross-examination. His steps are slow, purposeful, like a predator stalking. His voice is soothing but cutting. Miss Brown, these journals, these are your emotions. Yes. Your point of view. Christine nods. Yes. My truth. And your truth is influenced by your emotion. Right. Her eyes flash. When you are told you're worthless for years, it does not feel like emotion. It feels like fact. The jury mutters quietly, shushed by the bailiff. Darden pushes. Miss Brown, isn't it true that you, too, criticized Mr. Brown? That at times you called him selfish, remote? Christine breathes out. Yes. But I never said to him that he was nothing. There's a distinction between anger and erasure. The words weigh heavily. Darden even stumbles for a beat before he changes gears. Miss Brown, you broke up with Mr. Brown. You're no longer living with him. Would you say that factors into your testimony? Christine's lips quiver, then form the smallest, saddest smile. Breaking up saved my life, but it didn't eliminate the years prior. Those years are what I'm testifying about. The jurors' gazes linger on her a moment longer this time, as if they see not only a witness, but a survivor. Surviving isn't freedom. It's evidence of what you survived. Kody finally loses it at the defense table, whispering harshly at Darden. She's twisting everything. She wanted this. She's the one who broke us. His words ring out just enough for the gallery to hear. The judge pounds the gavel loudly. Mr. Brown, you will be silent or removed from this courtroom. Kody scowls at Christine, his complexion ruddy, veins bulging in his neck. Robyn holds fast to his hand, speaking softly. Stop. Please stop. Christine stands her ground against his glare, unflinchingly. For the first time she appears stronger than him. Whitmore rises again, deflecting. Miss Brown, if you could explain to the jury one thing, just one, about living under these words, what would that be? Christine takes a breath, her voice trembling but absolute. It felt like dying with my eyes open. Like each day I was smaller. And love should never be that. The courtroom drops into silence, so profound, it's hushed. Even the judge lowers her eyes for an instant. Love never should ache like death. The gavel finally breaks, adjourning the day's testimony. Jurors move slowly out of the room, faces somber, some colorless. Reporters dash from the gallery, talking into tape recorders. Robyn holds on to Kody's arm, her eyes brimming, her face frantic. Janelle stays close to Christine, holding on to her as they make their way out. And over in the corner, Meri hovers once more, her eyes brimming with something other than neutrality, or doubt. Maybe it's recognition. She recognizes this tale as well. Tomorrow it will not be only Christine's voice. Tomorrow, the children tell. And when children talk, the burden of truth is too much to bear. When tears from a mother fill a courtroom, the jury does not just hear testimony, they sense the burden of a lifetime. The third morning is one of eerie quiet. Outside the courthouse building, the air is heavy, as if even the desert breathes in unison. Reporters are already queued up, cameras poised. Everybody knows what today is about. Yesterday it was Christine, solid and unvarnished, her voice shaking but intact. Today it is the children. Inside courtroom 3B, the air is heavier than ever. Jurors shift in their seats, their pens poised, their faces solemn. The gallery is packed, fans, locals, reporters, all waiting for the voices that will matter most. Christine sits at the plaintiff's table, her hand resting lightly on Janelle's. She glances back toward the door, eyes searching for the children she knows are about to walk into the lion's den. On the other side of the aisle, Kody sits rigid, his face frozen into a scowl of defiance. His attorney leans in, whispering tactics, but Kody doesn't budge. His eyes are fixed ahead, unflinching. Robyn sits tight, her hand locked with his, her lips sealed as if in perpetual prayer. She understands the burden of this testimony. She understands what it will mean if the jury accepts the children. When kids step into a courtroom, innocence is evidence. The door opens, and the bailiff steps aside. A girl in her teens enters first. She is tall, her shoulders straight, but her fists bunched at her sides. Her hair drapes across her face, hiding her a little, but those eyes are full of fear and blaze. The gallery whispers softly, hushed by the gavel. The clerk administers the oath. Her voice is soft, but distinct. I do. Whitmore, the prosecutor, steps forward softly. His voice is gentler than ever, not wanting to shatter her. Would you please tell the jury your name? Savannah, she whispers. And Savannah, do you know why you're here today? She nods. Yes, to tell the truth. Whitmore smiles weakly. That's all we ask. He waits a moment before taking a step back, allowing her room. Can you tell us about a time when your father's words impacted you? Savannah takes a sharp breath, looking at Christine, then at Janelle. She finally puts her eyes on the jury. One time, I was 12. I asked him why he didn't attend my school concert. He glared at me and said, because I don't have time for silly things when the family's falling apart. He said that if I wanted his respect, I was to stop bothering him with little stuff. I didn't sing again for a year. A gasp spreads through the gallery. Christine lowers her head. Janelle dabs at her eyes. Childhood does not shatter in an instant. It shatters piece by piece, so that silence comes to seem safer than joy. Whitmore goes on with caution. How did it make you feel? Her lip quivers, as if I wasn't worth his time, as if loving me wasn't sufficient, unless I was perfect. She dashes away tears, ashamed, but the jury notices. They all notice. Did this occur more than once? Asks Whitmore. Yes, she nods emphatically now. It occurred all the time. If I received a poor grade, he told me I was lazy. If I cried, he told me I was weak. If I requested assistance, he said I was dramatic. Nothing that I did was ever adequate. Her voice raises slightly, and eventually, I quit trying. The jury is quiet, their pens still. Whitmore nods again. Thank you, Savannah. No further questions. Darden stands for cross. He lowers his voice, almost fatherly. Savannah, your daddy loves you, doesn't he? She pauses. He says he does, but you know he does. Her gaze narrows. I don't know anymore. The room freezes. Darden hesitates, his smile cracking for the first time. He looks at Kody, who shakes his head in anger. Robyn tightens her grip on his hand. When a child replies, I don't know, the weight of uncertainty overwhelms even the toughest defense. The second witness is younger. A boy hardly 15. He comes in with reluctant steps, his arm lightly touching the bailiff, as if to require steadying. His hair is well combed, but his hands grab nervously at his sides. The clerk administers the oath, and his voice almost breaks on the words, I do. Whitmore leans forward a little to be at his eye level. Thank you for coming. Can you find something that your dad said hurt your feelings, and tell the jury about it? The boy looks over at Kody, then again at the jury. He used to say I was soft, that I was too much like my mom, that if I wanted to be a man, I had to quit crying and be more like him. His lip quivers. I once said to him I wanted to be a teacher. He made fun of me, said teachers don't get paid, said I was dreaming small. After that, I never mentioned my dreams anymore. The jury sits, agog. An older juror wipes his glasses, blinking hard. Whitmore's voice is soft. How did that make you feel? The boy looks down at the floor. I still don't know who I'm supposed to be. I just know who he didn't want me to be. Christine weeps silently at the table. Janelle clamps her hand over her mouth. Kody shifts restlessly, his jaw clenched. He mutters something, but the judge's eyes flash, and he is silenced with a glare. Dreams die softly, but their funerals resound through eternity. Darden rises once more, voice even. Son, your daddy only wanted the best for you, didn't he? To challenge you? The boy slowly shakes his head. Challenging doesn't feel like shattering, and that's what it felt like. The courtroom is paralyzed. Even Darden cannot respond. The last child is summoned, a girl older, her face determined. She stands tall, her eyes keen, her jaw clenched. When she speaks, her words ring out across the room, with a voice that quiets even the gallery. My father once explained to me that my duty was more important than my happiness. He told me that if I couldn't place him first, then I was being disloyal to the family. You have any idea what that does to a girl? It makes you believe love is servitude. It makes you believe being happy is selfish. Her statements are knives. The jury winces in unison. Whitmore recedes, allowing her words to settle. Robyn bursts into sobs, holding on to Kody's hand. It's not true. It's not true, she breathes, but her voice shakes too hard to be convincing. Kody looks at his daughter, his face flushed, his eyes moist, but not with tears of apology, with rage. When children label their hurt, parents can no longer hide behind love. The judge orders a recess. The gavel cracks, but its sound is lost in the hiss and gasp that fill the gallery. Reporters pour out, buzzing phones already making headlines. Brown children fall apart on witness stand. Love was like slavery, testifies daughter. Christine holds the children outside the courtroom, drawing them into her arms. Their tears blend with hers, but now for the first time their voices are unencumbered. Inside, Kody slams his fist against the table. They've been poisoned. This is Christine's doing. This is Janelle's doing. They're turning my kids against me. Robyn pleads with him. Stop, Kody, please. You're making it worse. But Kody shakes his head violently, his voice rising. I won't let them destroy me. The bailiff warns him sharply to lower his voice. The jury files out in hushed silence, their faces white, their eyes weighed down by what they've just heard. And everyone's aware. The case has shifted. It's not Christine's anymore. It's the children's, and their testimonies could make all the difference. Tomorrow, when the expert witnesses testify, the court will pose the toughest question to date. Is emotional abuse invisible or undeniable? When children cry in court, the trial stops being about law. It becomes about humanity. The court today is a different place. Yesterday it was the sound of children's voices in the air, shaking, cracking, sometimes angry, always indelible. Today those voices will be weighted not only by memory, but by science, by expertise, by individuals who have spent their careers studying pain that can't be grasped but scars all the same. The jury comes in slowly, some of them still bearing yesterday's weight. They eye Christine, eye Janelle, even Kody, but most of all, they are tormented by the words of the children. I don't know if he loves me. Dreams don't matter. Love felt like slavery. These are not words jurors can quickly discount. Kody sits tensed at the defense table, jaw clamped, fists clenched. Robyn stands next to him, already wiping away tears, whispering, "Stay calm, Kody. Just stay calm." But Kody's eyes are smoldering as if on the verge of bursting out again. Christine sits silently at the plaintiff's table, her journal closed, her hands resting on top of it. Janelle sits beside her, rock solid as ever, though her lips compress tightly when she looks over at Kody. Meri is still in the gallery, her eyes sharp but torn. The judge bangs the room into order. We will now hear expert testimony. Experts speak, and feelings are converted to facts, and facts have the power to shatter denial. The first witness, Dr. Sarah Thompson, a board-certified child psychologist. She enters the stand with unflappable poise, her voice even, her eyes bright. The clerk administers the oath to her, and she sits, pushing up her glasses. Whitmore, the prosecutor, gets started. Dr. Thompson, you've examined the testimony provided by the Brown children, have you not? Yes, I have. And what did you discover? She clasps her hands together. Their stories are the ones of kids who have been told repeatedly that their feelings don't count, that their dreams are not worth pursuing, that they're only loved if they behave. These are all the indicators of what we would call emotional abuse. The jurors lean in, pencils scrawling. Can you break down what you mean by emotional abuse for us? Whitmore requests. Dr. Thompson nods. Unlike physical abuse, emotional abuse does not leave visible bruises. Instead, it leaves psychological wounds. These wounds manifest as low self-esteem, chronic self-doubt, anxiety, depression, and in children, a loss of voice, literally and figuratively. When a child says they stopped singing, or dreaming, or asking questions, that is not coincidence. That is a conditioned response to fear of invalidation. A murmur ripples through the gallery. Bruises will heal, but the silence that a child learns may last an entire lifetime. Whitmore inclines her head. In your professional estimation, are these children's accounts in line with long-term damage? Yes, Dr. Thompson states unequivocally. The behaviors they reported, the fear of never being quite good enough, the compulsion to conceal feelings, the assumption that love is contingent upon performance. These are textbook responses to prolonged emotional abuse. Christine closes her eyes, tears falling silently down her cheeks. Janelle places a stabilizing hand on hers. Whitmore moves back. No further questions. Darden stands for cross-examination, his smile courteous but pointed. Dr. Thompson, you never personally examined these children, did you? No, I did not. So your testimony is based on hearsay, what they said in this courtroom. Yes, and on the patterns those accounts create. But feelings are subjective, aren't they? What constitutes abuse to one person may be tough parenting to another. Dr. Thompson's eyes become stern. There is a difference between discipline and degradation. Discipline instills resilience. Degradation annihilates identity. The courtroom ripples. Darden pushes on. But isn't it the case, doctor, that no two families are alike? That cultural or personal differences may influence how parenting is viewed. Of course, she says evenly. But when children consistently describe themselves as silenced, worthless, or fearful, that is not culture. That is harm. Darden's jaw tightened. So you're saying my client is abusive, based solely on stories. Dr. Thompson leans forward slightly. I'm saying children don't coordinate trauma. Their voices align because they lived it. The jury exhales collectively. Even the judge's eyes flicker, as if struck. Children don't rehearse truth, they bleed it. The next witness, Dr. Michael Harris, a family therapist who read over Christine and Janelle's journals and messages. He stands tall and unruffled, his very presence commanding space. Whitmore starts. Dr. Harris, what struck you in reading these documents? They exhibit a pattern of emotional invalidation and gaslighting. Gaslighting happens when a person denies another's view of reality, causing them to question themselves. You're dramatic, or you're weak, are not helpful. They break down self-esteem. It builds over years of dependence and silence. The jury writes quickly. Would you give an example? Yes, Dr. Harris replies, paging through Christine's journal. Here he told me if I really loved him I'd stop thinking about myself. That's a classic case of conditional love, using affection to manipulate behavior. Gasps run through the gallery again. Christine lowers her head, shaking. Conditional love is not love. It's control masquerading as devotion. Darden stands up. Dr. Harris, aren't journals always one-sided? We don't have the journals of Kody, do we? No, so we can't see both sides, can we? Dr. Harris shrugs. Abuse is never reported by the abuser. But consistency between several witnesses, Christine, Janelle and the children, also makes for strong corroboration. Darden scowls. So you're on their side. I'm seeing patterns, Dr. Harris reminds him. Patterns don't lie. The jury nods slightly. Lastly, Whitmore calls trauma counselor Dr. Emily Carter, who has extensively worked with emotional abuse survivors. She says survivors tend to feel guilty, thinking they are the problem. When Christine wrote, I felt invisible, like my voice was dust. She was telling the story of eroded identity. When her daughter testified, love felt like slavery. She was giving voice to the internalization of conditional love. These are not arbitrary words. They're trauma stories, and trauma stories repeat in survivors everywhere. The jury appears shaken. Trauma doesn't create tales, it recapitulates them. By the end of the day, the professionals have painted a heartbreaking picture. Cycles of gaslighting, invalidation, conditional love and silencing, all converging across journals, texts, and children's voices. Christine sits exhausted, her face pale but firm. Janelle is calm, though her lips quiver slightly when she glances at the children who sit quietly in the back. Meri gazes ahead, her eyes glassy, perhaps recalling her own unseen wounds. At the defense table, Kody slumps back, arms folded, face red with rage. Robyn whispers urgently to him, but he brushes her off, grumbling. They're taking everything out of context. But the jury has heard enough to know. This is not just anecdotes, it's science. The gavel thunders, marking the end of the day. Tomorrow Kody himself will be called to testify. And when he gets up there, the court won't only hear his explanation. They'll witness if his words mend, or hurt all over again. When authorities corroborate what survivors describe, denial no longer begins to sound like defense, and begins to sound like culpability. The fifth morning dawns, not with whispers but with a roar. In front of the courthouse, double the number of people are gathered. The reporters yell over one another. Cameras flash continuously. The news is all around now. The kid's testimony has rocked the country, and today the man at the epicenter of it will tell it for himself. Within courtroom 3B, the atmosphere is a whirlwind of tension. Jurors clip in, their faces somber, their pens poised. Christine sits at the plaintiff's table, her hands tightly clasped over her journal. Janelle sits next to her, composed but watchful. Meri stands again at the rear, her face white, her eyes keen. And Robyn sits mere inches from Kody, her hand clasped around his, like a lifeline. tissues already bunched in the other. At the defense table, Kody Brown sits forward, shoulders strung tight, jaw clenched. His eyes glare with fury. Rebelliousness, perhaps desperation. For days he has heard allegation, read diary entry, put up with his children sobbing. Today, at last, he gets to say something. The judge comes in. The gavel thunders. Court is now in session. The defense may call its witness. Darden stands effortlessly. The defense calls Kody Brown. The gallery exhales, like everybody's been holding their breaths simultaneously. When the accused turns into the witness, the courtroom pauses to breathe and begins observing. Kody proceeds to the stand, every step slow. Wade. He extends his right hand, takes the oath, and sits down, his hands clamped on the lip of the wooden railing. He looks at the jury, and at Christine, and at the children in the back. He settles at last on Robyn, whose quiet nod steadies him. Darden starts soft. Mr. Brown, you've heard your ex-wives and children testify. Can you tell the jury, in your own words, what kind of father you think you are? Kody breathes sharply, resting forward. I'm not flawless. No father is. But everything I've ever done was for my family. Every choice I made, every word I uttered, it was because I wanted them to be resilient, to survive, to thrive in a world that does not comprehend us. His voice creeps up. I never intended to hurt them. I never said they weren't worthy of my love. If my words hurt, it was because I needed them to understand the larger picture, to regard me, to keep this family together. Robyn breaks into tears, nodding fiercely, muttering yes, yes, under her breath. Love and control share the same disguise, until someone removes it. Darden nods. Can you explain the charges of conditional love? Kody's jaw clenches. I asked for respect. I asked for loyalty. That's not conditional love. That's what family is built on. They label it abuse because they didn't want to say no. They label it manipulation because they didn't want to listen to me. But ask yourself, what family survives without order, without structure? He scowls at Christine. She undercut me. Always. She wrote in journals rather than standing with me. She painted me as the villain, so that she could play the victim. Christine does not blink. Her eyes remain ahead, hands together, but tears fall silently down her cheeks. The jury shifts in distress. Some eye Kody intensely. Others glance at Christine, at her inner strength. Darden goes on. Mr. Brown, what do you have to say about your children's testaments? Kody's voice shakes for the first time. It broke me. To hear them say I didn't love them. It broke me. I gave them everything. Roofs, food, a father's protection. Did I push them? Yes, because the world won't treat them kindly if they're weak. Did I command respect? Yes, because without respect, this family falls apart. He swallows hard, his eyes shining. I never wanted them to fear me. I wanted them to be proud of me. If I failed, if they felt fear rather than pride, then perhaps I failed as a father. But that does not make me a criminal. There is a hush in the courtroom. Even the judge leans forward. A father's remorse can ring like love, or like denial, sometimes both. Whitmore stands up for cross-examination. He speaks in a crisp tone, his gaze fixed on Kody. Mr. Brown, you claim you demanded respect. Isn't it a fact that respect was only given when your wives and children did what you told them? Kody flinches. Respect and obedience are not the same. Whitmore persists. But when they defied you, what did you call them? Kody pauses. Whitmore picks up a piece of paper. In this text message to Janelle, you said, stop undermining me. You're making the kids weak. If you can't fall in line, maybe you don't belong here. Do you deny sending this? Kody's lips compress. I sent it? Is that discipline or degradation? Whitmore insists. Kody's voice increases in pitch. It's reality. Families don't survive when wives tear down their husbands. The jury winces at his shocking outburst. Christine lowers her head, shivering shoulders. Robyn cries harder, breathing softly. Please, Kody, stop. The more loudly the defense screams, the softer the truth whispers. Whitmore moves in, his voice low but slicing. Your daughter testified you said to her that loyalty means more than happiness. Did you say that? Kody's face flushes. I might have. But loyalty is happiness. No family without loyalty. Whitmore's eyes flash. So if your children felt unhappy, that was their fault? No. Kody bangs his hand against the rail. It was Christine. It was Janelle. They poisoned my kids against me. They made me the monster. They order. The judge barks, gavel cracking. Mr. Brown, you will compose yourself. Kody subsides, panting, eyes burning. The jury is watching him, some with compassion, some with alarm. Whitmore lays the coup de grace on him. Mr. Brown, you told me you loved your children. You told me everything was for them. Tell me this. If love tastes like fear, if love mutes dreams, if love causes a child to say, I don't know if my father loves me, is that love? Kody's lips part, but no sound emerges. His face contorts. His eyes flash to the jury, to Robyn, then to Christine. The silence uncoils. Finally he barely whispers, I don't know. Gasps ripple through the gallery. Robyn bursts into tears. Christine hides her face in her hands. The judge's gavel comes down again. We will recess until tomorrow. The jury files out, their faces drained, their notes burdensome. Reporters dash from the gallery, voices rising into pandemonium. Headlines are already beginning to be made. Kody Brown blows up on stand. I don't know. Kody concedes under fire. Christine slips out quietly. Janelle rocks steady beside her. Meri hesitates again, her eyes brimming with tears but still set in a determined glare. And Robyn grasps Kody, who slumps in the defense table, shattered but unmournful. Tomorrow will bring closing arguments. Anders bitte, set its C in Tibet. And when the jury finally speaks, the verdict won't just decide guilt or innocence, it will decide what kind of love counts as family, and what kind counts as abuse. When love can't answer its own questions, a jury will. The courthouse is a stage poised for its curtain closer. The gallery is filled to capacity, journalists bent over their notebooks, camera teams stationed outside with satellites angled upwards. Everyone senses that this is closing arguments day. The day the attorneys take every utterance, every tear, every silence, and hammer it into their last opportunity to persuade 12 strangers. Inside, the air is heavy. Jurors enter with somber expressions, their notes held like anchors. Some look at Christine, some look at Kody, but the majority keeps their heads down. They are aware of their responsibility. Christine sits at the plaintiff's table, her journal lying open in front of her, folded hands resting on top. She seems weary, but her shoulders are still straight. Next to her, Janelle is serene, her eyes steady, her quiet strength filling the room. Robyn sits inches from Kody, tissues already moist in her hands, praying fervent prayers. And Meri, always the specter in the background, sits watchfully with eyes that betray more recognition than detachment. The judge enters, her gavel ringing out in the air. Ladies and gentlemen, today you'll hear closing arguments. You are reminded that what the attorneys state is not evidence, but their interpretation thereof. You alone will consider the testimony and render a decision. Closing arguments aren't speeches. They're the final brushstrokes on a portrait jurors have been gazing at for days. Whitmore, the prosecutor, stands up first. His movements are deliberate, his tone firm. He has no notes, just the conviction of his argument. He faces the jury, his eyes clear but intense. Ladies and gentlemen, he starts, you have heard the testimony. You have read the journals. You have listened to the children. This case is not about disputes in marriage. It is not about flawed parenting. It is about patterns of control, of belittling, of conditional love so piercing that it cut wounds deeper than any wound we can observe. He moves closer. Christine wrote that she felt invisible. Janelle shared with you messages where love had conditions. Their children informed you they ceased singing, ceased dreaming, ceased talking. Why? Because they were told their voices didn't count unless they supported one man's ego. That is not leadership. That is not discipline. That is abuse. Soft gasps ripple across the gallery. Whitmore's voice becomes stinging. Mr. Brown would have you think this was love. But I want to ask you, when love shuts up a child's voice, is it love? When love says loyalty is more important than happiness, is it love? When love gives you scars you can't see, but that will haunt a lifetime, is it love? He gestures toward Christine, turning. This woman kept a diary not to shame her husband, but to survive him. She wrote down every bruise, so she wouldn't forget who she was. And those diaries are corroborated by the words of her children, of Janelle, even of Meri. They didn't plan, they didn't strategize, they just lived the same truth. The jury shifts, pens scribble wildly. Eyes shine. Whitmore's voice cracks, almost breaks. We are not here to punish a man for being imperfect. We are here because imperfection became cruelty. We are here because words became weapons. We are here because love became a cage. And you have the power to say, no more. He stops looking at the jurors' faces in turn. When you deliberate, recall their words, recall their tears, recall their silence, and recall that justice is not just for wounds that we can see, but for wounds that we cannot. He backs away. Thank you. The courtroom is quiet, dense, immovable. The strongest arguments don't scream. They speak softly of truths the jury already understand. Darden stands slowly, his suit crisp, his face calm. He stands tall in front of the jury, his voice steady, calm, measured. Ladies and gentlemen, what you have just heard was a sad story. Painful, yes. Heartbreaking, yes. But stories can be manipulated. Feelings can be dramatized. Memories can be tainted by anger, by betrayal, by divorce. My client, Kody Brown, is an imperfect man. He is stubborn. He is prideful. But imperfection is not against the law. He walks slowly. Imagine your own families. Imagine fights you've had. Things you regret saying. Were those things abuse? Or were they the ugly, hurtful truth of family and love? If we make angry words a crime, if we make every hard sentence a felony, then none of us are safe. He points to Kody. This man sacrificed everything for his family. He built houses. He worked day and night. He struggled to hold together a gigantic, complicated family. Did he fail? Yes. But failure is not abuse. His children say they felt silence, but children sometimes mistake discipline for cruelty. His wives say they felt belittled, but marriages sometimes collapse because of the burdens of expectations. These are tragedies, not crimes. The jury sits and listens, but their faces are less readable now. Darden speaks softly, his voice an appeal. Don't let heartache be handcuffs. Don't let bitterness rewrite history. Don't punish a man for being human. He walks back to the defense table, resting a firm hand on Kody's shoulder. A defense doesn't have to establish innocence, it merely has to sow doubt. The judge nods. The jury will now deliberate. The jurors file out in solemn silence, bearing the burden of days of testimony, notebooks, tears, and tantrums. The courtroom waits with bated breath. Christine folded her hands, mumbling a prayer. Janelle gazes ahead, serene but unyielding. Robyn grips Kody tightly, muttering, "They'll see. They'll see." Meri closes her eyes, as if preparing to take a blow. Hours go by. The courthouse buzzes with hushed discussions and tension. Reporters outside provide live reports, their voices shaking with expectation. Within, the families sit, quiet, locked in their own minds. At last the bailiff appears. The jury has reached a verdict. The gallery bursts into gasps, then becomes still once more. Everyone stands. The jurors march back in, their expressions inscrutable, their footsteps somber. The foreperson stands up, a crumpled piece of paper in hand. The judge takes it, glancing over it quickly, and returning it. Has the jury reached a unanimous verdict? Yes, Your Honor. The judge nods. Please read the verdict. The foreperson clears his throat. The courtroom quiets, each breath held. We, the jury, find the defendant, Kody Brown. The words linger. The gallery leans forward. Robyn clings to Kody's hand, mumbling desperate prayers. Christine closes her eyes. Janelle doesn't flinch. Meri clings to the wooden pew in front of her, guilty of emotional abuse. The room explodes. Gasps, wails, even tears of relief. The judge slams her gavel, demanding order. Kody leans back, his face flushed, his mouth agape in shock. Robyn falls into him, weeping hysterically. Christine bursts into tears, Janelle holding her steady. Even Meri dabs away tears. Quietly in the back row, the gavel cracks once more. Order in the court. Sentencing will be entered at a later time. Court is adjourned. Verdicts don't end stories. They start healing. The jury files out, white-faced but firm. The audience erupts in chaotic murmurs. Reporters scurry out, already typing away. Kody Brown, guilty of emotional abuse. Sister Wives trial concludes in jaw-dropping verdict. Christine exits the courtroom with Janelle, their tears mingling with relief. Robyn holds on to Kody, who sits numb, repeating, "This isn't justice. This isn't justice." Meri stands back, her gaze fixed upon Christine, for a long wordless moment, before slipping out into the tempest raging outside. Tomorrow, the world will argue. It will be called justice by some. It will be called betrayal by others. But here and now, one truth holds supreme. The children's voices were heard, and once heard, they cannot be stifled again. Verdicts don't heal scars. They just confirm that they existed all along. The decision still resonates, long after the crack of the gavel. Guilty of emotional abuse. The words linger in the air like a storm refusing to blow through. Within courtroom 3B, the tumult has scarcely settled. Journalists push towards the doors. Jurors make their hasty exit. Their work done but faces marked by the seriousness of what they've just resolved. Christine sits trembling, her head bowed, tears streaking her face. Janelle's steady hand rests over hers, grounding her. The two women share a look that says years of pain have finally been acknowledged, even if the healing has only begun. Across the aisle, Kody is a man undone. His face is flushed, his eyes bloodshot. He mutters under his breath, shaking his head violently, his hands gripping the edge of the defense table. Robyn clings to him desperately, sobbing into his shoulder, whispering, "We'll fight this, we'll appeal. They don't understand you." But her whispers can't drown out the sound of the gallery, buzzing like a hive, ready to swarm. Meri stands in the back, her stance rigid, her eyes impassive. For years she was silent. Today she witnessed silence shatter. A verdict does not conclude a tale. It merely tears the wrapper away. Outside the courthouse, there is pandemonium biblical. Reporters surge forward, microphones thrusting like spears, cameras popping like lightning. The crowd pushes, some crying encouragement, others screaming condemnation. Christine appears first, Janelle beside her. Her eyes are still wet, but her voice is firm as reporters close in. "Christine," one yells, "do you believe justice has been served?" She pauses, looking at Janelle, then directly at the cameras. This wasn't about revenge. This was about truth. For years we lived on words that belittled us. Today, the court told us that those words count. That hurt matters, even when you can't see it. My children's voices were heard. That's all I ever wanted. Her voice cracks, but she goes on. "I want people to know. Abuse doesn't always leave bruises. Sometimes it leaves silence. Sometimes it leaves fear. Sometimes it leaves you believing that love can only happen if you obey." And today, that was seen at last. Reporters burst into more questions. Christine bows her head, tears falling again, and Janelle leads her gently away. When a survivor speaks, the world finally knows what silence sounds like. Seconds later, Kody appears, Robyn holding onto his arm, both of them surrounded by bodyguards. As reporters close in, his face is a storm cloud, his voice raw with rage. "This isn't justice," he yells, his voice echoing across the crowd. "This is betrayal. Christine and Janelle poisoned my children against me. They made them into weapons. You think this verdict is about truth? It means nothing. Families fight. Families disagree. That makes me no criminal." Reporters cry out questions, yelping over each other. "Kody, what about the testimony of your children?" One shouts, "Their children." Kody snarls, "Children who have been manipulated by angry mothers who want to ruin me. I love my kids. I have always loved them. But love isn't giving them everything they desire. Love is teaching them fortitude, teaching them devotion. And this court," his voice bursts with fury, "this court made love a crime." Robyn weeps at his side, sobbing, "He's not a monster. He's a father who attempted to save his family." She hides her face in his chest, as security escorts them away. The crowd breaks into cries, with some shouting, "Justice," and others crying, "Free Kody." The stampede is out of control. When guilt and defiance clash, truth is a battlefield. Meri exits last, by herself, reporters surrounding her. Her voice is softer than Christine's, less angry than Kody's, but heavier in some way. "I lived in that family also," she says matter-of-factly. "I know what it's like to be shut down. I know what it's like to think you're not enough. I didn't testify the way Christine did, but that doesn't mean I don't get it." The jury made their choice, and perhaps it's a choice we all needed, whether we like it or not. Her words hit like stones thrown into a pond, rippling out. Reporters attempt to pin her down with more questions, but Meri disappears into the sea of faces, leaving questions unasked. The least likely voices sometimes speak the loudest truths. Nighttime arrives, and the media tempest only intensifies. News stations broadcast breaking news. Social media erupts with argument. Hashtags trending globally. #Kody verdict. #sister wives trial. #voice is heard. Video clips of the children's testimony fill feeds. Sound bites, spreading like fire. Fans disagree. Families disagree. Strangers disagree. Some stand up for Kody, declaring he's a victim of malice and a failed system. Others support Christine and Janelle, acknowledging their strength, calling for justice on invisible hurts. The family itself divides further. Robyn publishes an emotional response on social media, declaring the verdict a witch hunt, while Christine uploads a serene photo of her smiling children, captioned, "We are healing, one day at a time." Even TLC issues a statement, paying homage to the trial's effects while declining to predict the show's future. When the world divides, healing is more difficult, but also more vocal. Inside Christine's house that night, the atmosphere is altered. The children smile gently in the living room, their voices cautious but unencumbered. Christine sits across from Janelle at the table, drinking tea, her expression weary but relieved. "You did it," Janelle whispers. Christine shakes her head. "No, we did. And the kids did. I hope this doesn't break them more." Janelle's voice is calm. "No, it will make them stronger. Because now they know they were believed." Christine smiles weakly, tears shining in her eyes. For the first time in years, she lets herself feel hope. Justice does not remove scars, but it informs survivors their suffering was genuine. And that is where healing can start. Meanwhile, Kody is home, sitting in a dark room, lit only by the illumination of a lamp. Robyn is snuggled next to him, tears streaming down her face, praying softly. Kody glares at the wall, his hands curled into fists, his jaw working. "They turned everybody against me," he growls. "They took my children. They ruined everything." His voice breaks. "But I won't quit. I won't let them win." Robyn holds his arm tighter, her voice barely audible. "We'll fight. We'll appeal. You'll prove them wrong." But even in those words, there is uncertainty. And Kody knows this. Guilt does not always shatter people. Sometimes it fortifies them into stone. The world is waiting. The family is broken. And the tale is far from complete. But tomorrow will mark the last session, the sentencing, the final opportunity for words, the last moment before this episode is complete. When verdicts are done, reactions start. And sometimes the reactions are more explosive than the trial itself. The courthouse is quieter than normal, but no less somber. It's the last day of trial, the hearing on sentencing. The verdict's already in guilty of emotional abuse. The judge will determine today what justice will be, not only for Kody Brown, but for the family he broke. Reporters are gathered in droves outside, cameras perched like sentinels. There are signs among the throngs, some bearing justice for the wives, and others shouting "Free Kody." The country is polarized, but within Courtroom 3B, there is no polarization, only the crushing power of the gavel. Christine remains seated at the plaintiff's table, Janelle to her side. Christine's eyes are fatigued, yet her back remains firm. Her journal lies in her lap, closed, no longer as a protection shield. Janelle's serene presence exudes inner strength. In the rear, Meri hovers again, conflicted but there. Across the aisle, Kody sits slumped, his face pale, his shoulders heavy. Robyn is beside him, clutching his hand, her eyes red from endless tears. Today, even she looks worn, her spirit frayed. The judge enters. The gavel cracks. "We are here for sentencing in the case of the state versus Kody Brown." Sentencing is not just punishment. It is a final mirror, showing everyone who they have become. The judge waves his hand. "We will accept victim impact statements prior to sentence." Christine stands up first. She makes her way to the stand slowly, holding her journal in her hand. She opens it but doesn't read from it. Instead, she addresses the judge directly. "And then Kody, for years I believed I was the issue." She starts, her voice shaking but inviting. "I believed that if I smiled more, if I kept quiet more, if I folded myself small enough, perhaps he would love me. But love that asks for silence isn't love. It is fear." She takes a pause, looking back at her children in the back. "I saw my children shrink from words that were supposed to make them stronger. I saw their dreams disappear, their voices silenced, and I will never forgive myself for not leaving earlier. But today, they were heard. Today, we all were." Her tears shed but she does not stumble. "I don't need him punished to feel free. I just need this court to say what happened to us was real." And it was. The courtroom is quiet. some dabbing their tears. When survivors testify during sentencing, they are not seeking revenge. They are insisting on acknowledgement. Janelle stands up next. Her voice is softer, firmer, nearly detached. I'm not here to vilify Kody. I'm here to speak the truth. He sought loyalty, but he forced it through fear. He sought respect, but he shut us up to obtain it. My children, our children, are worth more than that. This is not about bitterness. It's about breaking a cycle. Because if we don't put a stop to it here, it will reverberate into their children, and their children's children. And that, I won't let happen. She nods resolute, then sits down. Christine holds her hand tight. Breaking silence comes first. Breaking cycles comes last. Then suddenly, Meri stands up from the gallery. The courtroom comes to life. She moves across to the stand, shaking hands, brimming eyes. I didn't intend to talk, she confesses, but I can't keep quiet anymore. I understand what it feels like to be invisible within that family. I understand what it feels like to doubt your worth every day. I thought if I kept quiet, if I remained loyal, maybe things would change. They never did. Her tone toughens a little. I loved him, but love doesn't make harm okay. And perhaps if I'd said something earlier, Christine and Janelle wouldn't have had to bear this alone. Gasps spread quietly around the gallery. Meri spins, making her way back to her seat, her face pale but brighter, as if a burden has finally been removed. Silence shelters abusers. Silence breaks for survivors. Then finally, the judge addresses Kody. Mr. Brown, would you like to make a statement prior to sentencing? Kody slowly stands up, his face contorted in exhaustion and anger. He holds on to the rail with white-knuckled strength. You've been told lies, he spits. Lies distorted into narratives. My wives despised me for leaving them. They turned my children against me. They wanted to destroy me, and now they have. His voice breaks, but he presses on. Yes, I was tough on them. Yes, I insisted on respect. Because that's what families require. That's what leaders do. I might not have been perfect, but I loved them. I still love them. And if they couldn't see that, then perhaps they never really loved me. His words linger, aching and hollow. Robyn weeps beside him, whispering, "We'll get through this." The jury turns aside, unshaken. Sometimes the final word speaks not truth, but blindness. The judge puts on her glasses, her face stern but unruffled. This court acknowledges that emotional abuse is a crime concealed, denied. This verdict is not an act of vengeance, but of validation. The words of Christine, Janelle, Meri, and above all, the children, have been heard. She stops, her tone firm. Mr. Brown, the court orders you to mandatory counseling and supervised visitation with your children, subject to review. You are also ordered to do a program in emotional accountability. You will not go to prison, but you will be held accountable for what you did. The gallery murmurs. Some gasp at the leniency, others nod solemnly. Christine exhales slowly, relief flooding her face. Janelle closes her eyes briefly, satisfied. Robyn clutches Kody, whispering fiercely, "See, it's not prison. We'll get through this." But Kody stares ahead, his face twisted, his pride unbroken, his denial intact. Punishment isn't always bars. Sometimes it's being forced to face the truth. Outside the courthouse, chaos erupts once more. Cameras flash, reporters yell. Christine leads her children out, speaking softly but firmly. This is the end of the trial, but the start of healing, she says. We don't want to be defined by pain anymore. We want to be defined by survival, and by love. Real love. The kind that doesn't demand silence. The kind that lifts you up instead of pushing you down. Her children smile weakly to her left, their shoulders lessened, their voices unwed. Janelle speaks softly, adding, "We didn't win or lose today. We were just believed. And sometimes that's enough." Meri is quiet, but for the first time in years, she smiles. A small smile, but one of peace. Verdicts conclude trials. Healing starts after. Christine puts her children to bed. That evening, their laughter resonating softly throughout the home. Janelle drinks tea at the opposite end of the table, Christine's journal lying shut beside her. For the first time in years, Christine does not feel compelled to fill its pages. The tale has already been written. Across town, Kody sits in darkness, Robyn at his side, whispering words of comfort. But his eyes are hollow, his pride broken, his legacy forever tainted. The family he sought to lead has moved past him. And in that still truth, the ultimate gavel, trials conclude with verdicts, but families start anew. Healing.